OK, Gary, for the moment, thank you very much for that. We're going to speak to the prominent US lawyer Lisa Bloom, who represents women who say they were abused by Jeffrey Epstein. Lisa, great to have you with us. Can we just start with that court appearance this afternoon? Ghislaine Maxwell appearing before a magistrate judge in New Hampshire. What will happen at that appearance? What decision does the judge have to make, and who will be present?
Well, Ms. Maxwell and her attorney and the U.S. attorney, the prosecutors, should all be present. And I think the first question is going to be bail, whether she's going to bail out. The good news for my clients, especially the one who has allegations against Ghislaine Maxwell, is that the court has previously denied a similar bail request by Jeffrey Epstein a year ago, saying that he was a flight risk. That was a very significant moment in his case. And I think for Ms. Maxwell, the ruling should be the same. She should not be allowed to get out pending her trial.
Will we see that? Will it be a public hearing? Will the cameras be present, do you think?
I don't know. Typically, they are public here in the U.S. It varies by state, but typically we have open access to our courts, and that includes cameras. OK. So as Audrey Strauss, the acting district attorney in the Southern District, acknowledged from the podium this afternoon, so far, this investigation has been an enormous disappointment to the victims. Do you think this is a turning point? We can only hope. It is true that law enforcement has let down the Epstein victims and the Maxwell victims for decades. They have been crying out for justice. And there was that sweetheart deal in 2008 where Jeffrey Epstein got a slap on the wrist. And there's also a non-prosecution agreement that the U.S. prosecutors entered into, saying that they would not prosecute Epstein or any of his associates. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell is not named as one of his associates, but it is a broad statement, and I would expect her lawyers to say she can't be prosecuted because of that deal that was made over a decade ago.
From the boards that were put up in the press conference this afternoon, we can see that these crimes took place across many state lines, in New York, in Palm Beach, Florida, in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and of course here in London in the UK. And at the centre of it all was this woman. From the women that you represent, what role do you think she played?
Well, Ghislaine has always been at the center of this case. Jeffrey Epstein did not act alone. Jeffrey Epstein, if he had gone out and tried to solicit underage girls, many of them would have been suspicious. Their friends and family would have been suspicious. But because he had a woman, Ghislaine Maxwell, go out, meet girls, entice them, recruit them, they let their guard down. They thought that they were safe with a woman. And it turns out, according to many, many allegations against Ghislaine Maxwell, that she was the one who was primarily responsible for getting so many girls and young women into his clutches, ultimately who were abused by him. And some allege also abused by her.
Again this afternoon, the Southern District is encouraging Prince Andrew to come forward. But we know from the outgoing attorney, Geoffrey Berman, that despite the Duke's attempts to portray himself as eager and willing to cooperate, he's not sat down and he won't sit down with the federal authorities.
Right. So it is time for him to do that, because now this is not just about what Prince Andrew knew about Jeffrey Epstein. It's about what he knew about Ghislaine Maxwell. Of course, there are direct allegations against Prince Andrew as well, but put that aside for a moment. Andrew has said that he was close friends with Ghislaine. We know that they spent a great deal of time together. He may have information that would be helpful here. For example, he may be able to put her at a place and time that's important for the prosecutors to establish for one of the victims. So we don't know what information he has unless he comes forward and cooperates. As he frankly, they've been begging him to do that for months. He has said he would do it, but then he decided to retreat and hide behind his lawyers and not cooperate.
At trial, could he be subpoenaed as a witness?
Absolutely, he could be subpoenaed. You know, no one is above the law, and either of our countries, the UK and the US, routinely work together and transfer witnesses to each other to effectuate justice. So yes, absolutely.
Many of us, through this lockdown, will have watched the Netflix documentary about Epstein, and yeah, it's shocking in detail and the number of people involved. But the one thing that really stands out right at the end of the documentary is that there were tapes. Epstein recorded everything. And the burning question, I suppose, is where are the tapes? Where is the material evidence?
Right. So I don't know what the FBI has. They don't reveal everything. We do know that they have hundreds of photographs that Epstein took of underage girls and young women naked and in sexual acts. They've had that for at least a year. I hope they have tapes as well. They've also charged Ghislaine Maxwell with perjury for statements that she made in a deposition a couple years ago, essentially denying everything. I would suspect they have some pretty strong evidence if they are accusing her of perjury.
And just a final one, Lisa. I mean, they are clearly very sensitive to the risks of her detention, given what happened to Jeffrey Epstein, the two guards falling asleep on the job. I mean, what sort of precautions will they take with the Bureau of Prisons? How do they protect her?
Well, I can only hope that that incompetence will not repeat itself so that the victims can get justice. She should be watched 24/7. There should be cameras on her. We cannot let her escape justice in the same way that Jeffrey Epstein did.
Lisa, I'm very grateful for your time. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Lisa Bloom there, the lawyer for some of the women who are putting allegations against Ghislaine Maxwell.